The aim of art is not to represent the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance, according to Aristotle. Good morning, mga ka-iLab. Good morning, arts neophytes and aspirants. We are glad to welcome you again in this webinar, featuring two of the best and renowned artists in town to be our invited speakers for today. Because on September 6, 2022, we will have a simultaneous conduct of the 2022 Calabanga Enviro Contest featuring eco poetry, environmental poster, and mobile photography. This is brought to you by iLab ARAL, the local government unit of Calabanga, and the Municipal Tourism, Culture, and the Arts of Calabanga. So without further ado, may I call in Before we introduce our first speaker for today, we will be showing you a video presentation on Enviro contests.
"2022 Calabanga Enviro Contest. Environmental competition for elementary and secondary students of Calabanga on September 6, 2022. Eco poetry, environment poster, mobile photography." All throughout the world, people are concerned about climate change. Children, teenagers, and adults all take small actions that add up over time to have a big impact on the environment. Everyone must become aware, knowledgeable, ethical, and capable of taking action to safeguard the environment and address climate change.
Calabanga is active in environmental advocacy, particularly on ecological conservation and climate action. The local government, schools, youth organizations, civil society, and volunteer groups have been active in implementing various programs and projects that promote environmental awareness. In celebration of the 273rd Town Fiesta, iLab ARAL-Co, led by the local government unit of Calabanga and Municipal Tourism Office, will spearhead the 2022 Calabanga Enviro Contests on September 6, 2022 to instill environmental and climate change awareness to young students.
Objectives: develop public awareness on environmental conservation and climate change education for children and youth in the community. Showcase the creative skills of elementary and secondary school students through poetry, drawing, and photography. And influence the people in schools and communities to take action.
And we are back. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, without further ado, may I call the head of iLab ARAL, Mr. James A. Esperida, to introduce our first speaker. Sir James.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Ma'am France. So I will be introducing to you our first speaker. He is an educator and a visual literacy researcher. He was a Japanese mech scholar at Naruto University of Education, Tokushima, Japan, from 2018 to 2020. Currently, he is a teacher 3 at Sierra Nevada Elementary School in Tinambak, Calabanga, Camarines Sur, Philippines, where he also serves as editorial cartooning and poster making coach and press conference coordinator. He has been actively engaged in various projects of iLab ARAL, such as iLab ARAL Podcast and Climagaling Climate Challenge Action. It's my honor to introduce to you our eloquent and brilliant speaker, Sir Oriel Mostar Jr. Sir, hello.
Hello po, Sir James. Thank you very much for the introduction. Again, my name is Oriel. Welcome to all the participants of the Calabanga Enviro Contest, brought to you by the iLab ARAL team. So I will be presenting with you designing posters for the environment. So let me just first share my screen. Sir James, how do I share my screen, please?
Sir, you may click the share screen.
Which one is the share screen, sir? Turn off center stage. Okay. Thank you po. Share content. Sir, I have options here: share content, photos, iCloud Drive, Dropbox, Google Drive box, website, and bookmark.
Okay, so are you using mobile phones po or laptop?
I'm using po a tablet, sir.
Tablet.
Photos, website, Drive, Dropbox.
Hello, everyone. Okay, while our speaker is still preparing his presentation, I would like to inform everyone that our webinar is in preparation of our 2022 Enviro contest that will be held at Nesting Place Integrated Farm, Bigaas, Calabanga, Camarines Sur. This will happen on September 6 instead of September 3 because of the availability of our venue. Okay, the Enviro contest will feature eco poetry, environmental poster, and mobile photography. So don't wait any longer to register on the following contests so that we will see you at the nesting place on September 6th for the contest. Once again, we would like to acknowledge our sponsors. This Envir contest is brought to you by iLab ARAL and the local government unit of Calabanga and the Municipal Culture and the Arts of Calabanga. Thank you so much, everyone, for making this contest possible. Once again, mga ka-iLab, let me introduce to you, let me give you rather, Mr. Oriel G. Mostar Jr. for the designing posters for the environment, sir.
Thank you very much, Ma'am France. And we apologize for some technical issues that we have encountered. You know, nahahalata na po sa edad. Di na masyadong updated sa ating mga um, high-tech presentation media. So again, ladies and gentlemen, especially for those who are interested to join the 2022 Calabanga Enviro Contest, my name is Oriel Mostar Jr. and I will be presenting with you designing posters for the environment. So next slide, please. In the next slide, you will see the basic of poster making. Ito po, nakikita ninyo yung intro ng poster making. Yung second slide po, look at the icon. Yung icon dito, this is a meme from Facebook. I am following some of our meme pages. Ito yung poster making intro natin. So for those who are doing posters and have been joining to poster making contest, ito yung pinaka-basic lagi nating dinodrawing, di ba? Yung mundo, tapos yung minsan isang kamay lang, minsan dalawang kamay. Later on, we will be discussing what are the meaning of these symbols and how do we incorporate this in our posters. But first, let us identify or define what is poster. So sa next slide po, it says there that a poster is a temporary promotion of idea, product, advocacies, or events put up in a public space for mass consumption. So basically, it is a visual representation of an idea. It can be an advocacy, especially for the environment. We use posters in advocating conservation, wildlife protection, energy consumptions, and so much more. Tapos then they also represent a product or even an event like concerts, invitations. These are supposed to be put up in public spaces. Yung ilinalagay siya and dinidistribute sa public places for mass consumption. So while we are, after we define what is poster, we will be concentrating on making posters for the environment. But let us first look into the history of posters in the environment. So in the succeeding slides, we will see there how posters evolved from history. This is from an article written by Angelina Lippert of the posterworld.org. So ito yung history. We will just have to look into the timeline of how we have history. How did we come up with posters for the environment? So in the 1800s, the invention of lithograph paved way in making posters. So during this time, the posters concentrated only on advertising. So yung lithograph is a printing device that was invented in the 1800s, and it is the time where posters were rampant for advertising. Although environmental causes were not concentrated or were not published and produced during that time. Later on, next po, we have representations of nature in posters during the time when lithographs were colorized. Next slide, please. So dito, makikita ninyo, there are posters that have been developed with the representation of women or the female form as a use for the representation of allegorical themes. The most famous of which were, as far as posters were concerned, by Alphonse Mucha. Yung title nito is The Four Seasons, o yung ating yung ating representations ng women or the female form. Dito rin, we can also see the illustrations that depict nature and environment. So during this time na noong 1800. Next po. Dito naman, there are decorative panels also were given, represented in illustrations for posters. These represent months, the same age or the same time po ito, the same era in the 1800s. They are used to represent the natural world, where some of the earliest moments in poster history where we see a conscious reference to the beauty of environment. So dito makikita natin yung representations ng ating environment, nature and environment sa ating posters. The same era po ito and the same time during the 1800s in the time of lithograph. Next po, later on, nag-evolve na siya when there were already an advertising for travel. Sa next slide, makikita natin, there are already landscapes that are being represented in posters for the advertisements of traveling. Sa next slide, please, makikita natin sa next slide na landscapes in the early 1900s, travel posters of health have become the new trend. So, yung mga landscapes na yung nakikita natin, as seen in the examples, glorious landscapes were the main images for rail travel posters at that time. Next slide shows a representation of parks and nature. There are also posters that were accompanied by poems that emphasizes the attraction and the connection of human to nature. These emphasize not the destination, but sending a message that nature is something to seek out for pleasure, not just for health. So noon, during those times, we don't have yet advocacies to conserve nature. Usually, the connection of human beings only and the pleasure the pleasure of having nature as a place of travel and luxury lang yung pinire-present nila sa mga posters noon. Then, on the next slide, makikita natin, there is a representation of a bird. This is the time in the 1930s when Wildlife Protection Act was already created in the US, and it was already the game changer in posters that straight up about protecting the natural resources. Dito, it is already directly inviting people to protect and conserve wildlife. And specifically here, yung pinapakita or ina-advocate nila is to conserve wildlife birds or the birds in their community. And then next slide po. Here, during the World War II, there were already propagandas asking people to produce more goods and services for the war. So dito nakikita natin sa ating poster nakalagay, food is a weapon, don't waste it. Or if nakalagay pa, your own vegetable all the year round if you dig for victory now. So dito, it's like a propaganda or an advertisement to win the war. But they use natural resources, including food, for this advertisement. There were also a string of posters that reminded us to conserve everything from water to food and even to grow our own food. But here, the message is for us to win the war. Not actually as conservation per se, but for us to have enough resources for the coming war. Ito po yung nanditong ipinapakita sa mga messages ng posters na ito. Next po, dito naman after during the war and after the war from the 1940s to 1960s, there were already a rampant forest fires going on. So the theme of saving the planet had suddenly popped out and people started to care. Dito na nagsimula in the 1940s to the 1960s, nagsimula na talaga yung posters wherein the message is very clear, which is to save the planet and the environment. A good example here that was given from the same article is the Smokey the Bear. He was born in 1944 to encourage people to be more careful when out in nature. So may mga reminders si Smokey the Bear in the posters, the series of posters that were produced during that time. So meron dito nakalagay, prevent forest fires. You can stop this shameful waste. So it is directly telling people to stop these activities that can cause forest fire. Next po, after the war, ayan na, there is already more direct message. Dito na tayo in the 1960s. The 1960s is the era in which posters were consciously focused on dangers of pollution and the idea of humans negatively impacting the environment on an international scale. So sa next slide po makikita natin, as you can see, there is a representation of skull and the mushroom brought by an atomic bomb. There were already ito rin yung yung makikita dito sa yung isa, the non-nuclear future. As you can see, they are dreaming of a clean environment or a nuclear-free planet with the flowers at the right side of the poster. This was the result of massive nuclear testing around the globe. So ito, because of nuclear testing, kasi they have humans have discovered that nuclear is one of the most powerful weapon and a very, very destructive weapon. Parang we crave for power. So, but there are also people who advocate nuclear-free world. Kaya they produce posters that send this message. Next slide po. So after that, posters from this period generally fit within two categories. The first is the anti-nuclear, which essentially are also anti-war posters. So yung mga anti-nuclear is also anti-war. And posters focusing on resource conservation and preservation. Dito na nag-start yung revolution to produce posters that has a message telling us to conserve and preserve the natural world. There are a lot of skulls definitely doon sa mga anti-war and anti-nuclear posters because universally the symbol of skull is meaning death or fatality. So yun yung represent ng skull dito sa ating mga posters. And incidentally, the World Wildlife Fund or WWF was also established in 1961. So makikita ninyo yung image sa right was the very first poster by the WWF or the World Wildlife Fund. So nakalagay dyan, help to save the world's wildlife. Yan yung pinakaunang poster nila. That is already in 1961. Next po is in the 1970s. The Earth Day was born during this year. Ito na, posters get serious about the environment. In fact, they get celebrity serious because Robert Rauschenberg, one of a renowned artist during that time, he was a pop artist. Yung pop art, isa siya sa mga nag-revolutionize, create the very first Earth Day poster. Ito yung pinakaunang Earth Day poster noong 1970 made by artist Robert Rosenberg. So, mas lalo pang tumindi yung paggawa natin ng posters that is related to the environment. Tapos, from then on, next slide says that you get hit after poster hit of designs drawing attention to saving the planet. Even big companies like airlines also produce posters. Makikita sa next slide ito. It is a poster made by Air India. It is typically focusing on cleanup and beautification or the dangers of pollution. It even becomes sexy for big corporations to promote environmental issues. So from the 1970s, yan na nagsimula na yung posters making, posters with messages to conserve our planet or the environment. So sunod-sunod na. So here in the Philippines, we also produce posters. Ngayon naman, ang susunod kong itatopic sa inyo is what are the symbolisms or the visual symbols in posters for the environment. Next slide na po. Dito sa visual symbolisms, I will only discuss few of these because po ang ating sunod na speakers will also be going to discuss the in-depth discussion on how we use graphics and other symbols, shapes, lines, and other symbols in posters. Next slide po. Let us start with how do we use basic shapes and lines. So dito, we use the uses of basic shapes and lines include organizing information through grouping and separation. Yan yung una. So using circles, squares, and triangle, we use these shapes and lines to organize information. Mamaya, I will be discussing some of the basic meanings of these shapes and lines. Ano po? Meron din tayong it highlights important information. So it highlights important information. Basic yan sa visual language. Let's say, for example, in a text, we draw a circle on a word that we wanted to emphasize. Ganon din po sa visual representation sa posters. We emphasize or highlight an important information by enclosing it in a shape. Pwedeng ilagay natin sa square or sa circle. And then, it also adds texture and depth. Naglalagay po siya or nagbibigay siya ng texture and depth sa ating illustration, sa ating poster, or even in our infographic. Sa edad natin or in our, at present, we use different media, but as I was told, our poster making contest will be concentrating on traditional media. Sa atin, sa Pilipinas, ginagamit natin is oil pastel for poster making. But these concepts are also true to whatever media that we use in our visual representation sa ating mga posters. Tapos, number 4, it also creates structure. So when we say create structures, it can create a hierarchical process or a structure. Halimbawa, it represents process, it represents cycle, it represents movement, an idea from one idea to another idea. So these shapes and lines can create structure in our poster. Halimbawa, yung triangle, it can represent hierarchy. Ano po? Kasi para siyang level, para siyang stair. So next po, I will be giving you some examples of basic lines and shapes and their meaning. Ano po? Dito sa basic lines and shapes, yung mga basics lang. Number 1 is circle. The circle represents completeness. It can also represent cycles, continuation, and playfulness. Ito yung ating circle. So as you can see, some of these examples are used in environmental posters. Usually yung ating mundo rini-represent. Ano po? Nagre-represent siya ng, it is a circle. So dito, completeness siya. It can also represent cycle because our environment is a series of cycle. Ano po, paulit-ulit lang yung nangyayari sa ating mundo. And what goes up comes down. Sabi nga nila. Playfulness and continuation also. Next po, ang susunod nating basic shape is square and rectangle. Sa square and rectangle naman, it represents stability. It can also mean tradition, security, and straightforward. Sa ating graphical example, meron tayong makikitang block. So yung blocks na yan can represent stability, di ba? Pag pinagpatong-patong natin yung mga blocks, mas nagiging sturdy siya. So kaya mas mas stable. A rectangle can also represent security and power. Kapag mataas na building, it represents power or stability. Ano nga? Security din. Because of the straight lines or straight sides of squares and rectangle, mas stable siya. It represents stability. Ano po? Kapag yung mga building naman madami na yung represent natin sa ating poster or sa ating illustration, it can already represent progress. Ano po? It represents progress na. So yan yun. May security na siya, may progress na. So stable na. Kaya yan yung ilan sa mga meaning ng ating shape na ito. Ano po? Next po, another basic shape that we usually use is the triangle. Ano? Maraming triangle na nakikita sa mga posters. Ano naman ang meaning ng triangle? Triangle naman represents transformation. It can also mean movement and balance. Paano naging balance yung yung triangle? It represents balance because kagaya ng sabi nung teacher ko nung elementary, mas balance daw yung paghawak ng mga waiter if we form our fingers yung parang tatlo, parang triangle siya, mas nagiging balance daw yung paghawak nila nung tray. Sabi ko, totoo naman talaga. So, a perfect triangle can represent balance. Kasi nga naman, meron siyang foundation sa baba, tapos meron siyang tip sa gitna. Kaya mas balance siya, hindi siya madaling matumba or hindi siya madaling magalaw. Ito rin nare-represent din nito yung movement and transformation. So sa movement, makikita dito sa ating example yung ginagamit natin sa environmental posters, yung reduce, reuse, recycle arrows. Dito makikita na it is a cycle, but it is represented in a form of a triangle. So ayan po, yan yung meaning ng triangle. So you can incorporate these shapes in your posters. Meron pa tayong iba. Yung susunod naman is next is the intersecting line. Kapag meron naman tayong mga intersecting lines sa ating poster or sa ating visual representation, sa next slide, makikita na ang meaning po nito ay connectedness and relationship. So, merong ano yan? Merong pagkaka-connect sa bawat isa. So makikita natin, meron ako ditong crossroad, tapos merong parang yung Venn diagram that represents relationship. So yung lines ng mga bilog, they are interconnected with each other. So they interconnect with each other. So yan, ang ibig sabihin daw po ng ating lines na intersecting are connectedness and relationship. Next po is spiral. Sa spirals naman po, it represents growth, evolution, and transformation. Dito, makikita natin yung representations ng human DNA. It is in a form of a spiral, kaya growth siya and evolution. Yan yung rini-represent ng spiral. You can also see a representation of the human evolution. Yung theory, it is the theory of evolution that humans came from apes. Kaya nandyan sa natin sa representation na graphical representations or illustration na siya, pa-curve siya. Pa-curve yung pag-evolve, yung na nakaapak sila sa mundo. So spiral siya, parang progression. So yan yung ating meaning ng spiral. Next is the 5-point star. The 5-point star means excellence. Sa ating mga illustrations or posters, the 5-point star can mean excellence, but it also represents different meaning in different culture. For example, in the Philippines, it can represent Christmas kasi yan yung ginagamit natin. The 5-point star is used in our lantern, hindi po ba? So, kaya there are also different meanings in different culture. Depende sa rin represent. So, let us also make sure that we are giving justice to the symbol or the shape na ginamit natin sa ating illustration or sa ating poster. Baka naman inappropriate na minsan. Halimbawa, yung star, baka iba yung nai-represent natin. Instead of the 5-point star, linagyan natin ng ng parang yung paikot, parang parol siya, at linagyan natin ng tail, di naging naging representation siya ng Christmas sa Philippines. So, iba-iba naman yung ating iba-iba yung magiging meaning ng ating symbols kapag ganoon. Next po is the arrow. Mga arrows naman? Arrow is generally represents direction. Basic ito. Yung arrow po, it represents direction even in our road signs. Yung arrow po nagre-represent ng direction. To the left, to the right, or ahead, U-turn, ganon. Movement, force, and process. So kapag nagre-represent tayo ng cycle, we use arrow. Kapag nagre-represent ng process, we use arrows. So ginagamit yung arrow. Yung movement naman, yung moving arrow na galing sa bow. Yung ginagamit ng mga archers. So, yun naman yung represent ng movement. So, it can also represent transformation. One idea transformed to another idea, we represent it with an arrow in between. Yan po yung basic line. Basic line na arrow. Next is the curved line. Yung curved lines naman po, it represents fluidity, connection, movement, sexiness, and instability. So very basic natin na ginagamit yung curved line sa pag-represent ng wind and sa pag-represent ng water or the waves of the ocean. So fluid siya. Tapos yung curve naman minsan, it represents sexiness, kagaya ng color, yung parang navy blue na nandyan sa ating representation. Para siyang vase. Yung curve ng vase? And also instability. Nga naman, kapag curve, unstable siya. Kagaya ng waves at ng wind natin. Hindi naman parang we cannot represent it always as a calm sea na parang lagi lang straight or horizontal. Usually ginagamit natin yung curve line kapag nagre-represent ng ocean or water. Next po is the diagonal line. Yung diagonal lines naman, it represents tension and excitement. So ginagamit ito to represent tension and excitement. And then po, last here for the basic lines, zigzag. Kapag zigzag naman, it represents path and confusion. So yan naman po yung rini-represent ng ating zigzag line. Makikita natin dito sa sa representation, merong path na zigzag yung form niya or yung shape. Okay? So those are the basic lines and basic shapes that we use that we have to consider in representing our visual poster or illustration. Tapos ngayon, meron pa po tayong ibang mga shapes, yung basics na. Ito, these are illustrations or symbolisms that were taken from nature already. Meron na tayong mga illustrations na galing sa nature that are already given meaning as time goes by. Culturally, meron ng mga meaning yung mga representations natin na kinuha sa ating environment. So let us begin with the heart. Heart is supposed to be, factually it is a part of our body or even animals. They have biological heart, di ba? Pero yung shape na heart, it already represents love, compassion, and health. These are some of the most popular symbols from nature, and I will be giving you the meaning of these representations. So ginagamit ito sa posters. Ginagamit na po ito sa posters, and you can also use this in your environmental posters. Yung una natin is the heart. It represents love, compassion, and health. Next po, we have dove. This is very, very common and popular. Ginagamit ito kahit even sometimes sa mga bills or yung mga pera, merong dove. Kasi yung dove, it represents peace, calmness, and freedom. This goes way back in the story of the great flood in the Bible when Noah sent dove after the flood, nag-send siya ng dove at bumalik naman yung dove, meron ng dalang parang a stem or a pieces of leaves, so meaning tapos na yung flood or tapos na yung storm, kaya it represents calmness and also freedom. Tapos po yung sunod is raven or uwak. Culturally, it represents death and doom. So yan po yung representation ng raven. Mischief also is being represented by raven. Sa mischief or yung parang malas siya. Next is very common, trees. Trees are used in environmental posters. Lalong-lalo na. Gamit na gamit po yung trees. Ano naman ang ibig sabihin ng trees and how do we represent them in our poster? It means growth, nature, stability, life, and seasons. So, depende po sa form ng tree yung rene-represent natin. Halimbawa, ito yung apat na tree na nakikita natin sa sa ating representation sa slide. They are trees in different seasons. Yung isa, it's a winter tree with may snow. So it can represent coldness and wilderness. Yun namang yung isa, yung pangalawa, yung may color pink is a cherry blossom tree, spring. So sa representation na ito, it represents new beginning. Bagong pagsisimula na naman. Yung summer tree naman, yung pangatlo, yung color green, it represents life and nature. Tapos yung isa naman, yung last is tree fall during the fall season. Ito naman, it can represent renewal or yung it can also represent ending, pagtatapos and renewal. So iba-iba yung representations ng tree depende sa represent natin. But generally, it is a representation of our environment, the life that we get in our environment. Next po is the owl. Yung owl naman represents wisdom and intelligence. So ito yung representation ng owl. Usually ginagamit ang owl sa mga notebooks, sa mga brands ng mga school supplies because it represents wisdom and intelligence and it is related to education. Next is the butterfly. Yung butterfly naman, it represents rebirth, beauty, and transformation. Transformation kasi because of, di ba yung life cycle ng butterfly, it came from an egg and then it hatches to a caterpillar and then naging yung parang pupa bang tawag doon. Tapos naging butterfly siya. So it transformed, metamorphosis, yung tawag natin or yung term. Tapos rebirth, ilang beses ipinanganak yung butterfly. Una, ipinanganak siya as egg, tapos na-hatch yung egg, naging caterpillar, tapos yung caterpillar nag-produce ng parang tumira sa pupa or ano man ang ginawa niya. Tapos na-rebirth na naman siya as yung may winged insect na siya as a butterfly. So yan yung representation ng butterfly. Next is dog. Yung dog naman, it represents loyalty, protection, and companionship. Tapos po, meron tayong lion. It represents courage, leadership, and loyalty. So as been believed by the people, lion is the king of the jungle. Meron din po tayong fox, pero ito, seldom itong represent sa mga Filipino posters kasi wala naman tayong fox or lion sa ating environment. Or I mean sa ating ecology sa loob ng Pilipinas. Yung fox naman, it represents slyness and cleverness. And last po, dito sa set na ito is the turtle. Yung turtle naman or tortoise represents humility, longevity, and wisdom. It can represent longevity because as we all know, turtles can live hundreds of years. Humility naman, because of their silent nature, they are attributed to being humble. Ayan. Yan yung mga most popular symbols coming from nature that are now used in posters for the environment. So ngayon, last set na po ito. Ito na talaga yung ginagamit natin sa ating mga environmental posters, especially in the Philippines. Number one is the earth. Ano naman yung meaning ng earth? Siyempre, nurturing, motherhood, it represents humanity as a whole, and then groundedness and power also. It also represents power kasi we get life from earth. So nandyan lahat galing ang ating buhay. And then ito yung sinasabi ko kanina nandun sa basic ng poster making sa atin, laging merong mundo. Yan pala yung meaning ng mundo or no ating planet. Sunod po is yung hand or hands, depende. It can represent differently on how the hand is being represented, yung gesture. Kapag ganito, parang nakaganyan, it represents blessing. Ano po? Kapag yung isa namang kamay na nakaganito, isa lang na parang naka-relax, it represents care. Kapag yung dalawa naman na parang nag-aabrasa or nag-shake hands, it represents alliance. So it depends on how the hand or hands were represented in our poster. Ano po? So can I please have a few moments? Ipa-plug ko lang po yung aking tablet kasi lowbat na. Mga 2 minutes lang po. Ano po? So stay there po. Ayan po. So naririnig po ba ako? Medyo maingay na dito because of the rain. So malapit naman na po itong matapos. So ayan na po yung ating sinasabi kanina. Hand represents differently and it represents different meaning depending on how it is represented in our poster. So it can mean amity, blessings, willpower. Kapag naman yung parang fist, tapos honesty, peace, alliance, love, and care. So next po, our next represented graphic or symbol is the sun. So sa environment po, sa environment posters or illustrations, it represents energy. It represents positivity, life, light, clarity, and confidence. So ayan po yung represent ng sun. Especially, sometimes it's also being represented as weather. Yung weather natin. Ano po? It represents energy and life. Next po is the water droplet. Usually, it is accompanied with a faucet sa ating mga posters. Ano po? sa mga posters natin with for the environment, may faucet siya tapos merong droplet. Ano naman yung rini-represent nito? It represents life, conservation, sustainability, intuition, and mystery naman yung droplet ng water. It can also represent rain. Ano kapag marami? With clouds naman, it represents storm kapag meron ng lightning. So depende rin. So depende sa how it is being organized and being presented in our poster or illustration. Next po is the wind turbine. Ito uso na. Nung bata pa ako, when I was doing posters, wala pang wind turbine noon, hindi pa masyadong uso. Ngayon, very, very in na yung wind turbine because it is a representation of alternative energy, renewable energy, and energy conservation. Kasi part na siya ng mga programs ng mga governments around the globe to put up wind turbine as alternative source of energy. So yan, ginagamit na din natin yan sa ating mga posters. Next po is, of course, the reduce, reuse, recycle symbol. Ito, very, very self-explanatory. Alam naman na siguro ng lahat kung ano ang meaning nito. Ano po? So ayan na, reduce, reuse, recycle. It is representing conservation and care for environment. Tapos po, meron din tayong representation ng marine life which is dolphin. Ano, yung dolphin naman, it represents ocean conservation, care for the marine diversity, and marine life. Ayan po, dolphin. Hindi po ito yung comedy king. Ito po yung dolphin, yung yung marine animal. Sunod po is the bicycle. Yung bicycle naman po, it represents green transportation. It can also represent our health, alternative clean transportation. So yan, makikita natin sa sa example, yung bicycle color green siya because it represents how we take care of our environment. Similarly with our health, next po is the trash bins or the trash can. Usually with labels, may mga labels na trash bins. Ano naman yung represent nito? It represents responsible solid waste management. Ayan po yung representation ng trash bin. Tapos po, last dito sa set na ito is the animals. Usually, yung animals, mga silhouettes lang ng animals, it can already represent something. It represents biodiversity, endangerment of species, wildlife conservation. Yung WWF represent ay ang nasa poster nila na parang major character is the panda. Kasi during that time, parang endangered yung panda noong time na yon. Tapos ngayon, dumami na ulit yung parang na-save na yung number of population ng panda. So effective yung conservation na ginawa nila. Ayan, meron din ditong representation ng elephant, ng rhino, tapos giraffe, tapos yung parang tree frog. Yan po yung mga basic natin na symbols na or common symbols used for environmental posters. So yun lang po yung aking topic, how to design posters for the environment. Thank you very much po and good luck for those who will be our
Thank you so much, Sir Oriel, for the in-depth discussion on how poster originated and the meaning of different lines and shapes in posters. With this, the designing posters for the environment topic is really worthwhile. It's really worth listening to or watching to with this webinar. By the way, we would like to inform everyone that we are doing this workshop. This webinar for you to make your own workshop at home, even if sabi nga ni Kayan, We are not seeing each other face to face with this platform. With this, this way, iLab ARAL is reaching to all of you, inviting the best speakers, right, Sir Oriel, to talk about these topics in preparation to our 2022 Enviro contest. Thank you so much, Sir Oriel. We learned so much from you.
Thank you so much po, Ma'am Fran. It's my honor to be part of this project. Thank you.
Salamat po, Sir Oriel. Okay, without further ado, let me call again once more Mr. James Ernest Esperida to please introduce our next speaker. Sir James?
Okay, so for our second speaker, we have Sir Allan Victor Misalucha. He is also known as Master Alvic or Master Al in the illustrators group. So, born in Albay but raised in Buhi, Camarines Sur, he has always enjoyed drawing and can't remember wanting to be anything but an artist. So Master Al graduated from the University of St. Anthony in 2002 with a degree in Bachelor of Elementary Education and passed the licensure examination for teachers that same year. He has 15 years of experience now as public school teacher in his hometown, Buhi. His talent in drawing and painting paved way for him to become a division and regional LR illustrator and one of the DepEd National Illustrators, where he is actively involved in the visual arts production of various K-12 learning resources. Master Al also made some comics and children's book illustrations. He is also a division and regional resource speaker in creative art management and basic drawing, realistic and cartooning, and he was also elected president as Kaguhit, DepEd Region 5 Illustrators. Let us welcome Master Allan Victor Misalucha.
Hello po. Okay na po ba?
Hello, Master Al. Oh.
Yes, am I audible na po ba?
Yes po. Yes.
Can I share now my screen?
Like the feedback.
Slideshow. Okay, good morning po ulit. Mukhang may echo. Liwat po, good morning. Pasensya na po kung kasi may problema po kasi ang ang camera ko kaya hindi ako nakikita. So hello po.
Hi, sir. Yes po.
Okay na po ba?
Yes.
Sorry po, medyo kasi medyo hirap ako dito sa ano ko. But anyway, okay na po, magpapatuloy na po ako.
Yes, please, sir. Sige
Okay,
po.
thank you so much.
Apo.
Of course, kay Sir James, ganun din po sa iyo, Ma'am France, at kay Sir Oriel. Napakaganda yung topic ni Sir Oriel. At actually, yung ibang ano ko doon medyo nahagip. Kaya maraming salamat. Mas detailed kasi yung napakinggan ko at napanood ko kay Sir Oriel. Anyway, my topic po is basic of graphic illustrations and design. So, sisimula na po tayo. Okay. Gusto ko siya nang i-share yung mas yung di nakikita yung slide ko dito sa kabila, kaya lang mukhang may problema. So okay na po siguro ito. Anyway, bago pa man nagkaroon tayo ng mga itong sa graphic na to na uso, kumbaga, meron tayong nasanay tayo, especially yung mga illustrator, yung tinatawag ng old school na daw. So ito ay tinatawag din natin conventionally drawn art. Sabi nga, refers to all illustrations that are created by hand on the paper using pencil, pen, or similar drawing tool. Ito medyo hindi siya masyadong magastos, pero habang tumatagal medyo magastos to kasi paulit-ulit kang bibili ng mga gamit mo na kailangan upang ikaw ay makapag-illustrate o makapagawa ng design. Okay po. Sa ngayon, dito na tayo ngayon sa computer drawn art. Ano po? Drawn by hand on a computer using gumagamit tayo ng mga software tulad nitong Adobe Photoshop, Corel Draw, and other open source image graphic software. Usually, lahat nagsimula naman sa Adobe Photoshop. At nasubukan ko rin po na gumamit ng Manga Studio, yung ginagamit ito'y if I'm not mistaken, nag-start ito doon sa Japan. Yung kasi ang ginagamit nila pag gumagawa sila ng comics. Kasi nandoon na lahat ng kailangan, kung kailangan ng mga balloons, yung para yung conversation ng mga characters, etc. Madali na lang, kumbaga. Hindi ka nagagamit ng mga materials na katulad ng mga materials na ginagamit sa conventional drawn art. Okay po. Kumbaga, i-click mo na lang doon tapos lalagyan mo na siya ng text. So, sa ngayon, ang ginagamit ko na is yung isang application na nalimutan ko yung pangalan. Mamaya pag naalala ko, babalikan ko po para tuloy-tuloy po tayo. Another application po kasi yung ginagamit ko na mas okay siya compared doon sa Manga Studio. Kasi itong itong Photoshop para sa akin mas maganda siya, pwede siya gamitin pang kulay o kaya sa mga teksto. Mas okay siya. Kasi itong Photoshop kasi may mga limitasyon din. Kaya mas mabigat kasi ang dito Mas kumakain siya ng mas maraming memory compared sa naalala ko na Paint Toolsai ang ginagamit ko po ngayon, Paint Toolsai. Ang okay sa kanya sa Paint Toolsai kasi kung ikukumpara mo doon sa Photoshop and other software, mas siya, very friendly siya. At talagang pag nasubukan mo siya, siguradong siya na yung pipiliin mo. Kasi noon, yun noon nga, ang ginagamit ko is Manga Studio. Okay, anyway, itong tulad nitong nakikita ninyo po dito, si Serum at si Kulalagbaw. Actually, isa ito sa mga ginagawa ko ngayon na hindi pa tapos, pero gusto ko lang ipakita po. Ano po siya? Bali, ito yung isang halimbawa na gawa sa software na yung paint tool side na ginagamit ko. Makikita ninyo na napakalinis niya, tingnan, at masarap sa mata. Kumbaga, mas pulido. Okay. Ayan, ito po, another computer drone art ko po. The same software po ang ginamit ko dito. Wala lang ito. Bali, nakiuso lang sa mga Darna. Sabi ko, masubukan niyang gumawa rin ng Darna. Ayan. Usually, pag nag-illustrate ako, minsan magsisimula actually sa yung graph muna. Pag mga children's book naman, iba naman yung paraan. Gagawa ka muna ng mga thumbnails na tinatawag para makita mo yung flow. Pero dito sa ganito, kung sa mga poster, alos the same din po ang paraan. Ang pagkakaiba lang kasi dito sa poster, kung gagawa tayo ng poster, para din tayong sumusulat, kumbaga. Di ba pag sumusulat tayo, gumagamit tayo ng 4 Ws and 1 H. Yun din ang ginagamit po natin. Dapat isusulat natin kung ano yung mga gusto nating makita sa poster. Sa pamamagitan sa tulong ng 4 Ws and 1 H. Parang ganun din. Tapos kukunin mo na lang yung parang pinaka main idea, pwedeng ilagay mo sa pinakagitna o sentro ng poster. O bala ka lang sa diskarte mo. Okay, so titingnan mo kasi medyo mahabang usapin, kumbaga. How to start? Una po, bago magsimula, siyempre babasahin mo muna yung script. Kung halimbawa ito ay children's book. Kung hindi naman, kung mga poster naman, aaralin mo kung ano yung pinaka-tema niya. Okay po. So, kung nakikita po ninyo dito sa picture na ipinapakita ko po, mayroong dalawang software na ginagamit ko dito. Itong katulad po, itong ginagamit ko, nasa screen mismo gumuguhit. Ito po ay XP Pen. Okay. At yung isa naman, yung doon sa unahan, ginagamit ko rin yon. Bali, pamana ko doon sa anak ko, is another software na doon ka guguhit, pero yung mata mo ay sa screen. Opo, sa screen. Yun po ay babanggitin ko na ang tatak para pero marami din iba, pero baka kasi may magtatanong anong tatak noon, Wacom yung ginagamit ko, kasi kumbaga tested ko na yung iba, hindi ko pa na-try. Ang amount nito is parang katumbas lang ng amount ng isang cellphone. Hindi yung cellphone na mamahalin. Okay? Para magkaroon lang po kayo ng idea. Kasi kung gusto niyo kailangan niyo talagang mag-graphic design, illustration, kailangan niyo talagang mag-invest sa mga ganitong gamit po. Ano po? Kailangan natin ng computer, kailangan natin ng laptop, tapos itong binabanggit ko pong pad, o drawing pad, o software. Okay. So, graphic design elements are the building blocks of graphics. Kanina, nabanggit ito parang may mga nabanggit din dito si Sir Oriel. Okay, sa line. Okay, sa line, bali apat, para makabuo tayo ng graphic design. Ito talaga palagi ang mga elementong dapat nandun, Okay, line, color, shape, texture. Okay. Sa line, kanina may mga narinig din ako kay Sir. Uh, ito, pag straight horizontal or vertical lines indicate lack of movement. Medyo passive kasi siya pag ganito ang ano niya is horizontal or vertical. So pag naka-diagonal lines naman indicate loss of balance in controlled motion. Actually, itong mga ganito, itong binabanggit ko po ito, ito yung mga ano, nagagamit ko rin pag gumagawa ako ng sa comics or children's book. Ayan, pag gusto mong ano siya, bigyan ng emphasis yung karakter mo na parang na out of balance siya, yung ano niya, yung angle niya or yung ano niya is dapat kung naka-diagonal, kumbaga. Halimbawa, yung lasing, di ba? Wala na sa control, dapat ang gagamit na parang pa-diagonal yung ano niya, yung tawag nito yung tindig niya. Yeah. Then jagged lines indicate breakdown and destruction. Curved lines indicate fluidity. Ito nabanggit kanina ni Sir itong fluidity. Less definite or predictable. So, sa color naman po is one of the most, of course, important aspects of design because it is what the eye is drawn to and what person notice first, di ba? Yung kulay, especially sa mga bata, sa mga primary, more on visual pa sila. Ito yung nakikita kaagad nila, di ba? Yung mga very attracted pa sila sa kulay. Color has the ability to strike emotion in a viewer or client, whether that be consciously or subconsciously. Diba yung kulay? So shape, yan. What kind of shape ba has the illustrator used in the images? Yung shape, may pinalaman din yun. Depende. Or sa design, sa poster. Does the illustrators use of shape suit the mood and intent of the pictures? Dapat yung isang magdi-design, dapat tinatanong nyo yung sarili nyo, okay ba ito? Sakto ba ito? Lapat ba ito? Okay. Yun. Compare the illustrator's use of organic found in nature shapes. Kasi, actually, yung lahat ng nakikita natin sa paligid natin, talagang may mga yan, kung titingnan natin, may shape siyang, especially sa mga illustrator, pag gumuguhit ka kasi, mas madali, lalo kung may ginagaya kang, sabihin na natin na image, pwede mo siyang tingnan as shape para mas madali. Para mas makuha mo yung tamang balanse, para mas makuha mo yung eksaktong sukat niya, magsisimula ka talaga sa ganon. Okay. Okay, pasensya na po kung medyo may naririnig kayo kasi andito ako ngayon sa shop. May ginagawa. Okay, tuloy ko na po ito para kunti na lang po ito. Texture. How does the illustrator manipulate the line? Yung color and shape. Okay, paano ba niya minamanipulate? What visual effect does the illustrator achieve with his use of those elements? Itong texture, napaka-importante po nito. Does the illustrator have tactile feel to it? Yun. Ito po yung mga samples na ginawa ko po. Ito, tulad nito, isa ito sa mga children's books na kasama doon sa illustrations ko. Ayan, kung mapapansin nyo po, may makikita kayong parang dito tulad nito, yung rule of thirds na tinatawag, yan, gumagamit din tayo dyan. Yung parang sa mga pag kumukuha tayo ng picture, nagagamit din natin yan. Dito sa particular na illustration po ito, makikita natin na yung bagay na mas malapit sa atin, siyempre, mas malaki. At Yung mga teksto ganun din. Okay, paliit at palaki. Habang kung papalayo naman, malaki, papaliit. Ayan. So lalaruin din po natin yung kulay para mas lalong masarap siya sa mata at maging mas kaakit-akit sa mga manunood, sa mga bata. Yan. O, sa kahit hindi na bata. Tapos ang style ko rin nagdadagdag din ako ng mga ibang elemento para lang pangdagdag pa ng para mas tawag nito mas maging effective siya sa pagtingin ng mga bata. Okay, another po itong ito. Nagsisimula ako palagi of course sa line art. Yan. Line art muna at hanggang maaari wala ka dapat yung di ka kumukopya sa gawa ng iba kasi importante 'yon para hindi mahagip ng copyright. Tapos niyan, ito magsisimula ka ng magkukulay. Yan. Sa pagkukulay naman po, kailangan pwede ka mag-experiment ng kulay. Ano po? At ganun din, it also applies poster. Halimbawa, yung mga topic is about sa environment nga, dapat siya, yung kahit sa environment siya, yung magiging yung mga kasama doon sa illustration mo, dapat na-showcase niya yung halimbawa yung isang lugar, halimbawa dito sa Bicol. Kaya kung mapapansin niyo po dito, dito sa illustration, kung makikita niyo meron siyang dito dito sa unahan, lubi-lubi. Yan, tapos may mga iba pang mga diyan, may saging, etc. Okay. Ito naman po sa mga naman sa ito, children's book o mapaposter, dapat daw hindi natin although yung content niya o yung text niya is medyo marahas, halimbawa hinihingi doon sa eksena is yung binabato niya yung isang subject, hindi mo na kinakailangan ipakita yung mas marahas na itsura nito. Pwede naman galit na lang. Tulad po nito. Ito kasi, itong nakikita po ninyo, ito yung pasado. Ay, sorry, baka hindi pa pumapasok. Ito po. Ayan. Ito yung pasado. Okay, ito. Ito yung na-reject po. Pag mapa-poster nga o mapa-children's book, halimbawa medyo may gusto kang bigyan ng emphasis na medyo ganito, galit, binabato, hindi na kailangan ipinapakita pa na doon sa illustration na tulad po nitong nakikita ninyo na may lumilipad na bato, galit na mukha, pwede namang gawing simple lang, yung parang ganito. Ito yung pasado, ito yung hindi pwede. Okay. Ayan, ito pa po yung iba. At kung mapapansin din ninyo dito sa illustration na to, makikita rin po ninyo dito yung Mount Mayon. Tapos sa wall, meron po dyan na mural kung saan. At kung i-zoom po ninyo yan, makikita nyo yung meron dyan pili. Tapos may 6 stars na rini-represent ng bawat provinces ng Bicol. Yan. Naman, ipinapakita rin dito sa picture na to yung pagkapantay-pantay. Kasi makikita ninyo dito kung ano yung estado sa pamamagitan lang nito kahit hindi nyo makikita yung pinakabuo ng ng illustration, di ba? Makikita nyo may yan. Okay. So, sunod. Ay, wala na po yan. Hindi na po kasama yan. Ito po yung sinasabi ko kaninang thumbnails. Kung children's books po, children's book ang pinaghahandaan po ng isang illustrator. Okay. Ganun din po sa poster. Kung magpo-poster kayo, kailangan magsisimula kayo palagi sa magka-character study kayo, tapos draft kayo, yan, gano'n. Bago i-finalize ninyo, pag sa tingin ninyo okay na. So, ganun lang po naman kasimple. At since graphic yung pinag-uusapan natin, dapat i-set ninyo yung inyong sa CMYK. Kasi pag sa CMYK, especially ipiprint yun po ang tama para kuha niya, captured na yung kulay na dapat. Okay, ano ba itong na to? CMYK stands for C yung cyan, magenta naman yung M, yellow and black. Okay. So yun, okay. Bali, yun lang po kasi yung iba naman ay nabanggit na ng ni Sir Oriel. Halos parehas lang po, connected kasi yung din sa topic ko. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much, Master Al, for bringing us back to the past in terms of conventional drawing and introducing us to a lot of applications to get in touch with the latest trends in modern day illustration making. Okay, so may we ask Master Al and Sir Oriel to please stay with us a little longer for our short discussion. Ano po? So, Sir James will be posting some of the questions that might be asked from in the perspective of our learners po. Tapos we will ask you to answer them para po mas malinawan sila sa ating webinar this morning. Sir James, do we have questions now?
Thank you, Ma'am Franz. Okay, so ang ganda ng discussion ni Master Oriel and Master Al about environment posters. So, meron lang tayong parang short discussion. Gaano nga ba kahalaga ang simbolismo sa isang environment poster? Siguro simulan natin kay Sir Oriel.
Hello po, Sir James. Symbolism po, yung symbolismo po ay very important in our posters because as I said earlier, it can misrepresent something. Halimbawa po, yung star kanina, yung example natin, the five point stars is represented as excellence in our slide, but in different culture, it can represent differently. Halimbawa, pwede rin siyang maging represent as nationalism if we put it with yung 3-star and we put our sun, di ba po? So it can represent as our nation. So it differs from different perspectives. So make sure that we use it appropriately in our posters. And sometimes it can also halimbawa yung star, balik tayo sa star, it can also represent communism if we put it in a red background, ano, in a red flag. So magre-represent siya differently. So we have to know the symbols meaning and how it is represented in different contexts. Yun po yung importansya ng ating simbolismo. Thank you po, Sir James.
Thank you, Sir Master Oriel. Siguro, Master Al?
Okay. Sa akin naman po, ang simbolismo napaka-importante kasi it conveys kumbaga napakalawak ang Hello po, hello.
Opo.
Sige
po, Master Al.
Hello, hello.
Sige po, Master Al. We can hear you po. Please proceed.
Ayun po. Bali, nagpapahayag siya ng mensahe base sa tema. Ano po? At pwedeng i-represent din niya yung kultura at iba pang mga bagay-bagay na sabi ko nga base doon sa tema. Kasi usually pag sa mga poster o kung kahit sa sa mga kwento, 'di ba? May mga halos patungkol yun, may tema siya palagi. So yun po.
So therefore, salamat po, Master Allan, Master Oriel. So therefore, napaka-importante pala that we should be aware of the culture or yung background ng isang area where we will be holding the environment poster competition. Kasi in that case, we can also relate the symbols that we will be using in the poster. Okay.
Sir James, another question po. Sir Oriel and Sir Allan, may I ask po if posters, modern day posters po, is always accompanied by text para at least alam po ng ating mga kabataan. Kasi yung mga na-flash po kaninang mga posters, digitally made by man yun or hand-drawn, kanina may nakikita tayong may mga nakalagay na Save Mother Earth, mga ganan-ganan mga text. Is it really applicable po? Or may mga times lang po na dapat may text tayo? Or depende po yun sa halimbawa sa mga contest guidelines? Sir Oriel?
Yes, excuse me. Yes po, Ma'am France. Usually, posters that are used for mass production are accompanied by text. Yung pong mga nakikita nating posters na ginagawa ng mga wildlife fund, usually they are accompanied by text. Yung mass-produced po. They use text, specific text, and specific types of font in their posters. However, po, as you said, as you asked and mentioned, it depends on contest guidelines if they will be allowing to include text in the posters. Sometimes po there are contests na merong text, they allow text, and they give a specific number of letters or specific number of lines. Meron naman pong they do not allow. Especially po, depende sa event din eh. Minsan sa editorial cartooning, usually walang text nakasali. Pag poster, pwedeng binibigyan nila, they allow a certain number of letters and a certain number of lines kung ilan yung ano. And meron din tayong tinatawag na poster making and slogan. So, yung parang two-in-one siya. Meron ng slogan, tapos meron pang yung graphical representation sa poster. Yun po, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sir Oriel. Sir Victor? Master Al?
Ganun din po ang pagkakaalam ko sa mga ganun, walang nakasulat. Talagang gagawan talaga ng paraan ng isang illustrator kung paano niya maipapahayag base sa gagamit yung mga simbolismo. Yun lang po.
Thank you so much po. Do we have another question, Sir James? Okay po. So we have heard so much and learned so much from our two masters, sabi nga ni po ni Sir James. Ano po, kulang na lang si Master Claudio sa Darna. Mabubuo na ang tulong master. Thank you so much. Once again, Mr. Oriel Mostar for discussing to us visual literacy. Designing posters for environment, and Sir Allan Victor Misalucha for discussing to us basic graphic illustration and designs. Thank you so much, sirs, for gracing us this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks po.
Okay,
Thank you so much po. James.
salamat po.
France,
So,
salamat po.
salamat po, sir. We are very happy and honored to have you all here po in our webinar. So, children, everyone who is watching and listening this webinar, sundin lang natin yung mga tips and tricks na sinasabi ng ating mga masters in visual literacy and as illustrators. So, even if we're just novice in this field, I know na magiging pro din tayo in the future like them. Ano po? Starting off with our 2022 Enviro contest. So dito natin simulan yung ating mga skills in drawing. Ano po? So let us proceed. Sir James? Do we have any concluding statements po from Sir Oriel and Sir Allan?
Thank you, Ma'am France. So yung concluding statement ko na lang, good luck for the contestants who will be joining our 2022 Calabanga Enviro contest. Sana po maraming sumali, and as I was also informed, they will be given time, and of course they will the sponsors will include the local government of Calabanga. They are very supportive. So good luck po sa lahat ng sasali for the contest.
Thank you so
Thank you
much,
po.
Sir Oriel. Sir Allan?
Yun po, ganun din. Good luck sa lahat ng kasali. Kayang-kaya yan. Practice lang ang katapat niyan. Good luck.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Allan. Thank you so much po. Once again, itong webinar natin will be posted online, so you can practice, sabi nga ni Sir Allan and Sir Oriel, you can practice at home and do your own workshop on drawing, even at home and at school. Ano po? So, to enlighten us more about the environmental poster contest, may I call Miss Rechele Capal, one of the iLab ARAL's pioneering members. Ma'am Rachel?
Hello mga ka-iLab. Good day everyone. Before I start my discussion on the mechanics, I'd like first to commend our two brilliant and competent speakers, Master Oriel and Master Al, who shared their expertise on environment poster. Thank you so much, sirs. By the way, I am Ms. Rechele Capal, and I was tasked to discuss with you the guidelines for environment poster as part of the 2022 Enviro Contest, which will be held at the Nesting Place Integrated Farm on September 6, 2022. Okay, this pre-contest webinar is being done for the participants and the coaches to be oriented with the environment poster. So let me first state the objectives for the environment poster. First is to instill in the heart of the young Calabangueños the importance of environment conservation and climate action. Next is to showcase the talents and skills of high school students through art and drawing. Through art or drawing, rather. Then third is to influence the people in schools and communities on climate action. Thus, awareness-raising posters can be used to promote various causes, such as environmental conservation and climate change education. In this contest, the youth can be able to help spread environmental awareness through artworks. So this environment poster contest is open for grade 7 to 12 students for both public and private schools in Calabanga. A maximum of 20 participants is allowed and 1 to 2 participants per school. So here are the contest guidelines. Number 1. Okay, we have interested participants must pre-register by their coaches on the link that can be found on the iLab ARAL Facebook page before August 27, 2022 at 12 midnight or until slots are available. The contest is only limited to 20 participants. Okay, next is number 2, the coach must be a teacher where the participant is enrolled. There will be a registration of 100 pesos per event, inclusive of coach and the participant, while there is no limitation for the coaches to handle many events, and the contestants should only participate in only one contest. Yun. Also, the teacher, note ha, the teacher can train or coach 2 or more students in any event to be contested. Opo. Pero yung participant, only one event lang ang pwede nilang salihan. Next is, a confirmation email or message will be sent for the participant if he or she is accepted in the competition. So, dear coaches, right after you register your contestant, please wait for a confirmation email or message. Next is number 4. All confirmed participants must watch the digital workshop on poster making that is accessible through the iLab ARAL Facebook page and YouTube channel. So all the participants must watch this pre-contest webinar, just like this one, on the iLab ARAL Facebook page or YouTube channel. Next. Okay. The theme of the poster will be announced during the contest. And there will the theme of the poster will be announced during the contest day, after which the contestant will be given 5 minutes to consult with the coach. So right after the announcement of the theme, the participant and the coach will be given only 5 minutes to consult and discuss the said theme. Okay. Next. The contestants shall be given only 1 hour to work on their entry. No more coach interference is allowed during this period. So dear participants, you only have 1 work to work on your environment poster. And with this, coaches this time is not allowed to interfere while the contestant is doing the poster. Okay, next. Only the contest materials such as illustration board, all pastel crayons, pencil, and eraser will provided by the organizers should be used during the contest. But dearest coaches and participants, this time we will consider or allow you to use your own materials like oil pastel, pencil, and so on. Okay, next. Each participant should submit only 1 entry. The artwork shall follow a portrait orientation. All entries will be pre-numbered. No text or mark, example your code or your signature, and identifying the participant should appear on each poster. So dear participants, please note you are not allowed to put your signature or any code on your poster. No worries, because all the entries are pre-numbered. That's it for the mechanics of our environment poster. Again, the 2022 Calabanga Enviro Contest will be held at the Nesting Place Integrated Farm on September 6, 2022. Okay, here are the rubrics. Okay, sorry. By the way, here are the rubrics for the environment poster. First is relevance. The entry should effectively illustrate, interpret, and emphasize the theme. Okay, that is 40%. Next is aesthetic appeal. We have, through the use of aesthetic principles such as symmetry, focal point, pattern, perspective, and dimensionality, the submission must draw the attention of judges and the audience. That is 30%. And last is originality. The entry must showcase creativity and uniqueness. That is also 30%, a total of 100%. Next. Okay, there will be top 3 winners who will be awarded with certificate and the cash. Okay, non-winners will also receive a certificate of participation, and all entries must be published in print or digital media on various platforms. Next. Okay, first place will be given a cash worth 2,000 pesos. Second place will be given 1,500 pesos. And the third place will be given 1,000 pesos with their certificates. Okay, the intellectual property rights over overall prize-winning works and other non-winning works shall be given to organizer in perpetuity. This includes the right to use, produce, or reproduce for whatever purpose and whichever form as may be deemed fit by the organizer without further compensation for the artist or in his ears and assigns. Rest assured that the proper credit shall be given to the artists or authors. Next. Okay, here are the contest managers for the environment poster. Yours truly, Ms. Rechele Capal, will be one of the contest manager. Ma'am Shamir Salvosa, Sir Oriel Mostar Jr., and Sir Emmanuel Salvosa. Next. And Master Allan. We will include Master Allan as contest managers on our environment poster event. Sorry. And also they will be the judges. Sir Master Al and Sir Oriel will be the board of judges for the environment poster contest. Next, sir. Okay. Do not forget that our contest date is on September 6, 2022 from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Nesting Place Integrated Farm, Bigaas, Calabanga, Camarines Sur. Okay, that's it. Again, the contest place or the contest venue is on at Nesting Place Integrated Farm, Bigaas, Calabanga, Camarines Sur. I guess that's it. Thank you so much and good luck, participants. See you there. Thank you po.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ma'am Rachel, for discussing with us the guidelines and mechanics for our 2022 Enviro contest. Now we would like to acknowledge and give thanks to our sponsors. The local government of Calabanga through the Office of the Municipal Mayor, Honorable Eugene Norman B. Severo. And we also would like to acknowledge and recognize our main sponsor for this year's event, the Nesting Place Integrated Farm of Calabanga. San Isidro Developmental Cooperative. Calabanga West District. Calabanga East District. Calabanga District of Secondary Schools. Dulot. Art Gallery Cafe. Flash and Focus Studio. Once again, we would like to recognize the local government unit of Calabanga through the Office of the Municipal Mayor, Honorable Eugene Norman B. Severo, and the Municipal Tourism, Culture and the Arts Office of Calabanga. Thank you so much to our sponsors. I'm sure you love this webinar as much as I do. Now let me leave you with the words of Leo Tolstoy. Art is not a handicraft. It is the transmission of feeling the artist has experienced. That is why you are encouraged to be more close to nature, experience its inner desire to bring back its glory, and to be able to be one with it once more. Thank you so much everyone for watching. See you all at the contest. Goodbye everyone.